Well, now it's definitely being recorded.
All right, thanks for coming, everybody. We'll give folks another minute or two before we get started. Thanks for joining us on this lovely afternoon. We know you could be out enjoying the spring-like weather. Has everybody received the May mailer? I only have a handful of people on camera. Give me a thumbs up or a nod or a yes if you received the May mailer. All right, Sarah, Claudette. Let's give a shout out of thanks to Sabrina. Sabrina is our vice president, if you don't know her, and she is our artist in residence, and she does all of our beautiful graphic designs. Oh, you spotlit me, Howard. Means I can't see everybody else.
You are the president.
This is my last Zoom meeting.
I've been trying to do that when people are speaking, when we have a guest speaker to spotlight them for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes it a little bit easier for people to follow.
How many people are we up to, Howard?
We have 25.
All right.
Want to give it one more minute?
Sure.
Oh, it kind of leveled up, so why don't you get started?
Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the April HPCC meeting. For those of you that don't know me, I am Stephanie Welsh, the president of the Highland Park Community Council. And it's good to see so many faces that we recognize, some members, some board members, some neighbors, and also some new folks. Welcome. Glad you can join us. Should have an interesting meeting tonight. We have our Zone 5 updates, some HPCC updates. We have PRT, our Pittsburgh Regional Transit here for some updates. And some other news items. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Officer Kolsar, who's joining us from Zone 5, who's going to provide us with an update on public safety things in the last month.
Hi, everybody. So what I have from March 1st to March 31st, I have 18 crimes reported, 17 distinct incidents, but it looks like 6 of the 17 were non-reportable incidents, which means they weren't crimes. So that takes us down to 11. It looks like two burglaries and 3 thefts. Everything else is 0. So a total of 11 police-related incidents, which ended up being an arrest or a report. Mainly thefts, a lot of theft, motor vehicle thefts.
Are those theft of cars or thefts like from cars?
Theft from cars. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. Theft from building, that would be the burglary. So yeah, mainly just theft from vehicles and then the 2 burglaries. I'm not sure the specifics on the other, just regular thefts. I know we are having a lot of thefts from yards, porches, stuff like that. I guess people starting to put their stuff out, so that is a possibility. But other than that, that's all that I have.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for Officer Kolsar?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
We live on North Highland Avenue, and about a month ago, there was a very suspicious car that every evening would pull up across the street from our house and sit there well into the evening, and then in the morning it was gone, and it returned almost every night to the same place. It left its lights on.
For the last month.
Yeah, for the last month, and then in the morning it's gone. It's just a strange circumstance. I wonder if there's any way you could look into that.
Absolutely. When was the last time it was there?
Last night.
Last night.
Okay. No, you weren't able to get a plate or anything?
No, it's a small black car, maybe 10 years old.
Okay. Did you see the driver at all?
No, I did not.
Okay. Anything about it that stands out? Window
Well, it's just odd that it's sitting there with its lights on, and then you know, when we turn our lights off, we don't know how long he's there, but in the morning, it's gone. But
Okay, so
it's a little bit disconcerting because it's been there every night.
Okay, what time does it usually show up?
Between 8 and 9 p.m.
And what 100 block is this?
The 1400 block of North Highland Avenue.
Okay.
He parks on the south side.
The uphill side.
The uphill side.
Okay. That's what I was just going to ask.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll actually call the
911 because there was nothing that we could identify that was going on except the fact that every single night for the last month he comes at night and he's there until
okay.
we go to bed. Yes, so.
Okay. Yeah, that's no problem. I'll actually text the PM supervisor while I'm on the meeting and let him know to have somebody up in the area just to keep an eye out.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Hi, it's Laverne. I have a quick question. I put it in the chat. Were the incidences in spurts or just throughout the month?
Let's see. So it looks like the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 10th, 11th, then it jumps to the 14th, then to the 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and then to the 30th. So it's kind of spread out.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right. Well, it's a good reminder for folks to try to remember to lock their vehicles. And if you have to leave stuff in your car, try to put it in your trunk so that's not visible. And if you have things on your porch, especially at night, you can leave if you have lights or motion sensor lights you can put on. It's always good. If you know you're having packages delivered and you're not home, you can have a neighbor like pick them up for you. It's all sorts of good advice like that. Things to keep in mind. All right. Thank you so much, Officer Colsar, for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. But when folks are still getting on, I mentioned that the May mailer had just gone out. Hopefully you all received it. I'm going to share my screen for a moment. Maybe. I'm going to try to share my screen. There we go. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we have a whole bunch of really exciting things coming up. Spring is a very busy time for the HPCC. We do a lot of community events. I think everyone's happy to have the worst of the winter behind us and looking forward to being outdoors and being social and getting outside and again. So we have lots of things to look forward to this month. On Saturday, there's our sort of children's committee is having their annual Earth Day celebration up at the Super Playground at noon. And then towards the end of the month, we have an event that we haven't had before. It's a trash pickup over at the Hess Run Playground. So sort of down on the west side of the neighborhood. sort of in the border between Highland Park and Morningside, behind the playground. We have volunteers getting together. They've got supplies, and they're going to be picking up sort of the trash on that hillside down below the playground. So great opportunity to get out in nature and do something nice in our park and for the playground. And then next month, again, many things happening on the 3rd and 4th. We have a whole bunch of things on Saturday morning. We have our annual parklet cleanup. If you feel like getting dirty, you can come and help do some weeding and cleaning the flower beds. We have hedges to prune, probably some flowers to plant. So that's happening in the morning on the 3rd, and then later in that afternoon, we'll be getting together at the parklet in order to make banners and posters and things in preparation for the marathon the following day. And then on the 4th, we have our annual marathon party. That starts at 8:30. It's sort of it spans from Highland Park, Highland Ave rather, in front of Tazadoro, where there'll be live music, and goes up around the corner on Bryan Street, sort of following the route of the marathon. And in the parking lot of the Bryan Street Market, we'll have coffee and donuts and noisemakers and a table with some children's activities. So I believe it's mile marker 22. It's always a good time, rain or shine. I think we're due for some shine this year instead of some rain. So that's something to look forward to. And then a really big event is returning. For those of you that have been in the neighborhood for a while, you might remember we had house tours every other year over the course of 6 years in the teens. And they were very, very successful, very, very popular. And we have some volunteers who are bringing it back this year. So it is coming on Saturday, May 10th. They have 10 fabulous homes lined up for you to enjoy. You can go to our website to get tickets. They're $35 in advance, $40 day of. We also need volunteers to help show the homes and sell tickets the morning of the event. If you sign up for volunteer, there's 2 shifts, a morning shift and an afternoon shift, and you'll get not only a t-shirt, but a free ticket so you can enjoy the house tour on the other half of the day. So that's super exciting. Should be a lot of fun. Again, hoping for nice weather. And then on May 15th, we'll have our sort of our recent tradition. We have our May meeting in the park, again, a way to sort of bring people back together, enjoy our community space, and see each other in the park in person in May. And this is going to be an extra special community meeting because not only are we celebrating our 80th anniversary this year, so it's going to be a little bit of a birthday party, the HPCC, an anniversary party, but this year we are also purchasing the parklet, and fingers crossed, we should be closing on it before our May 15th meeting. So it's very exciting. Again, if you've been around for a while, you may remember that the parklet, this is on the corner of North Euclid and Bryan Street, was essentially like an overgrown lot that wasn't really maintained. And in 2020, with all the closures happening during COVID, the HPCC, we were already concerned about our neighborhood businesses and our restaurants. And we had a board member who lobbied to have us adopt that space. And so we were able to lease it since then. We have made it into this beautiful little parklet. It's gotten prettier and prettier every year. We've had volunteers who have maintained it, planted flowers, made picnic tables, painted picnic tables, and hosted events there. And now finally, after 5 years of leasing it, we are actually going to purchase it. So it's super exciting. It's also a sort of a new chapter for us as an organization because we'll actually own like property, which is something new. And so we'll have an official ribbon cutting, a bit of a party, and we'll also be inviting organizations who are offering services and events and happenings around Highland Park this summer. So you'll be able to meet people and learn more about opportunities happening in the neighborhood this summer. So May 15th will be a really fun meeting at the parklet. And then in June, the annual neighborhood yard sale and Bryan Street Festival return. If you pay attention and are regular participants, you might notice a slight date change. In the past, we've held these events on the first Sunday in June, but this year we've decided that we're shifting to the second Sunday in June because the first Sunday in June is always the city's Pride Festival, and we didn't want to conflict with the Pride Parade and the events happening downtown. So you have an extra week to prepare if you're going to be selling things. So June 8th, mark your calendars. You can go to our website and register. You can also, if you have that May mailer, there's you can register by filling out the form and mailing it in as well. You can register to be a yard sale provider, hosting a yard sale. You get a sign that you can pick up about a week in advance, put in your yard. And you'll also be listed on the official listing of yard sale participants. I think last year we had about 150. You can also, if you don't have a well-situated home, or if you're in an apartment without like a yard, we have space available in sort of the flea market area on Bryant Street where you can sell things as well. And then starting at 10:30, we're starting a little bit earlier this year because it's so popular. The Bryant Street Festival will kick off. We'll have live music, food trucks, all sorts of vendors and children's activities, and be a good time down on Bryant Street. So mark calendars for June 8th. And then the last one I put up is our June meeting. Our June community meeting will be back at the church in the one of the meetings rooms there. And this is our sort of annual meeting where we report out to the community about our budget, what our committees have been up to, and there'll be elections for new board members and new officers. And it says it in red. Normally we always meet on the third Thursday of the month, but it just so happens that this year the third Thursday of the month is Juneteenth. And so we didn't want to conflict with anyone's celebrations of Juneteenth. So we moved the meeting one day early. So actually our June meeting is on the 18th of June. So just keep that in mind, all you regular meeting goers. So, and any questions about our upcoming meetings and activities? Lots to look forward to. All right, well, we hope you join us for these events. I hope you sign up and volunteer or participate in, the yard sale, the festivals, the house tour, take part in the marathon celebrations. Also just want to give a shout out. We have so many volunteers. I'm afraid I'm going to forget people, but we have Laura, who's organizing the Earth Day cleanup. Spring Parklet cleanup is Kelly Vitti from our board. The marathon is Jessica Ackery. She does it every single year. She's awesome. The Highland Park house tour is Elisa Lukey from our board, and Emily, whose last name is escaping me, as a volunteer. The two of them have just been going gangbusters, getting that organized. The yard sale is the HPC's own Jason Grice, who many of you might know. Again, if you've done this in the past, he's been organizing the yard sale for several years now. Bryant Street Festival is Justin Bagat, former board member, Bob Starsnick, Kelly Vitti, sort of taking the lead on organizing that. So thank you, all of our really hardworking and dedicated volunteers. All right, a couple other HPCC announcements before we get to PRT. One is we have elections coming up in May, public elections on May 20th. And we just wanted to, we don't usually weigh in on a lot of issues or candidates, but there is a ballot measure that as a board, we decided that we support, and just wanted to let the community know that this is an issue that we think is of public importance, and that's something that we would encourage you to consider supporting as well. This is a ballot initiative related to ownership of the city's water and sewer infrastructure. And so currently, this is a bit technical, but I'll try to be brief and simple. Currently, for the past, 40 years or so, the city's water has leased its water infrastructure to PWSA, who is now actually just PW. And that lease is ending in the fall, and they have the opportunity per this existing lease to buy the water infrastructure for $1. Now, Pittsburgh Water is a public utility, but there is concern that if you've sort of paid attention to goings on across the state and in other areas, a lot of public water utilities have become privatized in recent years. And when that happens, the trend is that rates really go up and ratepayers really lose a lot of control over what happens with their water. And so to sort of seeing that that's a possibility in the future, right now, Pittsburgh Water says that that's not a path that they want to pursue, that their intention is to remain public, but, over time, leadership of that organization could change. So to prevent future leadership of Pittsburgh Water from privatizing the infrastructure, the ballot initiative would change the city's home rule charter to prevent a private entity from owning the water infrastructure. And so that is something that we support, because we think that's just very important for the public to be able to maintain control over those types of infrastructure systems, as that way the people have more of a say and it can influence what happens. So as a board, we support that. We encourage you to support it as well. There's information online about it, so you can do some more research if you're interested and have questions. Any questions on that? All right, one final quick question before we move to our speaker. If you were at the last meeting, someone raised a question about, we had Pittsburgh Water with us, and someone raised a question about lights on the covered reservoir. It was someone who lives in the apartment building, and the lights were shining in their apartment in the evening. And Pittsburgh Water wanted to follow up with them, but they did not get that person's name. So we're trying to help them track down this individual. They're also reaching out to management at the apartment. But if that was you, or you remember who that was, if you can shoot me a note or put it in the chat, we will figure out connecting them with Pittsburgh Water so they can help figure out. Apparently there's just a whole bunch of lights over there, and they're not sure which one they need to be focused on to help alleviate the problem. So, all right. With that, I'm going to hand it over to our speaker. We were going to have two speakers, Pittsburgh Planning and Pittsburgh Regional Transit. The planning department ended up canceling on us. There was a whole package of zoning amendments that were passed by the zoning committee that then had to be approved by city council. And the city council has decided to, instead of considering them as a package, to sort of break them up and consider them individually. So the process has really slowed a bit. So they've decided that just didn't seem to make sense to come to the meeting tonight. So we sort of asked for an update, but we don't really have one to present at this point in time on the proposed zoning changes. So that's it for me for the moment. Now I'm going to hand it off to our guest speakers. We have Pittsburgh Regional Transit with us. That's our bus. And we have Amy Silverman, who's their Chief Development Officer, and Darcy Cleaver, who's their Deputy Chief Planning Officer.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie, and thanks for inviting us. Thanks, everyone, for letting us take some time in your meeting this evening. So Darcy and I are happy to be here. We're going to, I'll just walk us through a few brief slides. I'm going to talk about two topics this evening. One that is the reason for us being here, which is about Highland Park bus routing. And then the second is the state funding crisis that we are currently finding ourselves in, just to make sure that everyone is up to speed on that as well, since I have you all here. So I'll start with Highland Park. Let me share my screen. All right, hopefully you are all seeing, nope, you're not yet. Hopefully now you're seeing that. All right, so to start first with bus service inside Highland Park, it's been a couple years, I think, since we've been at an HPCC meeting, but we have been to several of your meetings over the last handful of years. I see some familiar faces, so nice to see you all again. This started back before the pandemic with our bus rapid transit project, which is now called the University Line. And in the University Line project, we were planning on a branch of our downtown, uptown Oakland project to use the 71B route to come up and terminate in Highland Park. At one phase of the design for that project, the branch infrastructure, so the stations, to support that branch were removed from the physical capital project. So we are currently constructing the University Line. The downtown portion of the line is actually wrapping up here in a couple of months, and the uptown and Oakland portions of construction began in January, and they'll probably take about 2 years. So the stations that would continue coming up all the way into Highland Park, so beyond Oakland through East Liberty and Shadyside into Highland Park, are currently unfunded. We are looking for funding. We have gone after one grant to support the station structures, and it was not successful. And so we're in sort of an indetermined time right now with when we will be able to fund the stations to support the corridor. However, the route already comes here to Highland Park. You've probably already been seeing the new buses. We do have the new buses to support the line. They're sort of a darker blue with some sort of arrow looking symbols on them that says PRTX coming soon. So those buses are out, the route is but the major conversation that we have been having with Highland Park over the years is about the terminus routing of both that route and the 71A Negley that both run through the neighborhood. So on this map here, we can see the current routing for both routes. There's a little spur off over to Mellon Terrace, which is more of a backup layover spur for us. So it's not part of the regular routing that you all would see as members of the public, but both routes converge on Bryant Street, and then they both use St. Clair and Euclid in a one-way direction on each of the two streets, and then they lay over near the apartment building up there in the northern part of the route across the street from the Flynn Parklet. We have had several meetings with you all and the broader community over the years about two major concerns with that routing, which has been in place for a very long time, but one being the width of those streets, especially considering they have street parking on them and buses moving up and down those streets, which are sometimes tricky to navigate with street parking on both sides. And then also the fact that our buses lay over or stop for several minutes. Our operators use the restroom, et cetera, in between their trips in front of the Flynn Parklet. And so concerns with that, with buses idling when they shouldn't be idling, or potentially having too many buses there, and the ambiance of that with the park environment that's across the street. So we had initially proposed that with the BRT project, we would not change the routing, and we came to consensus with all of you as a neighborhood, since this routing really only impacts your neighborhood, right? These routes terminate here. They're not going through to other places. So we really can have a really isolated discussion with this community about the routing within your community. And we had come to consensus on moving those routes when this bus rapid transit project moved forward. So the new proposed routing for both routes for the 71A is going to stay on Negley Avenue all the way to Mellon Terrace. And then Mellon Terrace is a one-way pair. It would loop in a counterclockwise direction around Mellon Terrace and end on the northern curb of Mellon Terrace, have its layover there, which was our backup layover location and has been for many years for buses up there, and then would just go south on Negley Avenue as its inbound routing. And then for our 71B, it would come up Highland Avenue as it does today, turn left onto Bryant Street as it does today, but then traverse the length of Bryant all the way to Negley, and then turn right up Negley Avenue to do that same counterclockwise loop on Mellon Terrace, lay over at Mellon Terrace, and then do the reverse on its inbound routing. So the last we had all talked with you was that we could not implement this layover at least until the PWSA Pump House Rising Main project concluded, which was tearing up Mellon Street, or Mellon Terrace, sorry. And so we needed to get a few additional feet of width onto Mellon Terrace to safely be able to park buses and still have a travel lane that buses could travel in next to the parked buses, in order to have safe widths there for moving vehicles. And so for those who recall the old Mellon Terrace, we had boulders that had been put in place to prevent our buses from parking on the grass because the street just wasn't quite wide enough. And so our buses were trying to park on the grass to get out of the way of moving vehicles. So we were able to partner with PWSA. We contributed a few $100,000 to that project to enable that street to be widened by 2 feet. And that is now complete. We have had questions from community members here about why we have not then updated that routing as soon as the street was complete. We do have a desire to have all of our bus operators, our drivers, be able to use non-porta potty restrooms on their layovers. And we have had a partnership with the apartment building there on St. Clair for many, many years. We have been having challenges with it lately. And those challenges, we have been trying many different things and we have not been able to find a solution. And that is not, those challenges are partially our operators' fault. So because of that, we've sort of acknowledged that in this particular situation, we really can't continue to move forward with that partnership with the apartment building. And so are moving forward with a plan that will require our operators to use a porta potty. They're actually already doing that at the Flynn Parklet because we are no longer able to use the apartment building restrooms. And so because we're already using a porta potty anyway, and that was really our primary reason for keeping the routing where it was, we have decided to implement this new routing for our June 2025 service changes. So those occur on Sunday, June 22nd. And we have built those schedules out. We also finally have enough operators to handle a couple extra minutes in these schedules. These routes are a little bit longer. It doesn't seem like much. But last year we'd been going through a really, really serious operator shortage, which we've finally been able to get over the hump of, which is wonderful. So we're able to accommodate those couple extra minutes in the schedules for these 2 bus routes to be able to go up to Mellon Terrace and have their layover here. So this is what that looks like today. I'm sure all of you are familiar since this is right around the corner from many of your houses, I'm sure. But we're looking here at Mellon Terrace, the northern part of Mellon Terrace, looking towards the east, towards the apartment building. Our layover is already marked out and painted out there. It says bus only, it's bus parking, that entire lane. It can accommodate, I believe, 4 buses at a time. We don't usually have 4 buses at a time for the current schedules of these routes, but it does provide us plenty of space and flexibility to have our buses lay over here. So we will need to have temporary porta potties right now to allow the operators to still be able to go to the bathroom. Those porta potties will be, I believe Darcy can probably correct me if I'm not totally correct, but about where that trash can is. And that is a temporary need for us. And they will be installed sooner than June 22nd. We believe by the end of the month that will be installed. And then starting on June 22nd, our regularly scheduled bus routes for both of these 71A and 71B will start going here. We are still committed to trying to find permanent restroom solutions for our operators. There are 2 additional plans in the works here. The active one is that we are this year going after a new contract for temporary restrooms that have electrical hookups to them that would allow our operators to be able to wash their hands or to have heat or air conditioning in a restroom facility. This is similar to if you've spent time in downtown Pittsburgh. We have those kind of fancy trailer restrooms. I think they're called Pittsburgh potties. Something akin to that. So we will be going out for requests for bids for that type of a facility in hopes that that could be maybe a midterm solution to this site. Long term, we don't have funding for this, but long term, we do want to build an off-street layover up here in partnership with PWSA. When they are done with the pump house, they have positioned the pump house, which is just off of our screen to the left of this image here. They have positioned that facility such that we could actually have a bus turnaround sort of parking area off of Negley Avenue on their property and could eventually build out. We have some, throughout our system, a few little cinder block restroom facilities that are small and nondescript. They kind of look like an electrical, little electrical building or something like that. That we would like to, ultimately do here. We do not have that project funded yet, so I don't want anyone to think that that's going to be, breaking ground anytime soon. But that is, ultimately what we would prefer to have here for many reasons. I mean, one, that these, we don't want porta potties. They're not great, certainly in the winter and certainly in the summer, they are not at all good for any of our operators to have to use the restroom in. The temporary facilities, while they are nicer because you can wash your hands or have heating or cooling, are very expensive for us to lease. And so ultimately we'd like to get to something that we own. It's a small facility, we maintain it. We have a master key to it, so it's just our operators using it. So we can deal with our own maintenance challenges and other things that are, just within our control and ultimately get to that point. So we hope that that is a welcome update. We know there have been several of you who have been wanting and hoping for us to make these changes for some time. So there will be a couple of new pairs of bus stops. Of course, the one here at the layover will be the first inbound stop that buses will serve before they start going down Negley Avenue. And then we'll have a pair of stops on Negley before they turn onto Bryant, and then another pair of stops in the center of the business district on Bryant, and then for the 71B only. And then from there, the 71A and B will have the stops that they already have on their routing that is not changing as they head towards Oakland and beyond. So let me just get through the state funding stuff too. I imagine if folks have questions and discussion, it's largely going to focus on this. So let me get this state funding piece out of the way, and then we can get back to any questions or conversation around Highland Park. I did just want to not miss the opportunity to let everyone know that we are in a very, very severe state funding crisis at the moment. It does not impact the 71A or B in a major way. It does impact both routes in a minor way. And when we say major and minor, those are formal definitions for us. So anything that impacts a route less than 30% of its weekly service or weekly number of trips is considered a minor change. Anything over 30% is considered a major change. So we have proposed minor reductions in frequency on both the 71A and B, neither of which can really handle those reductions. These routes are both crowded, especially in Oakland already. So they're not major reductions, but they are reductions. We have proposed that all transit services would end at 11 p.m. all nights of the week, up to a 40% decrease in service across the entire county, a 9% increase in our fares, bringing our fares from $2.75 to $3. We've also proposed an increase in our paratransit fares for those of you who may have friends or family who are mostly seniors and people with disabilities who are using a door-to-door transit service because they need that extra level of support to get them to medical appointments or day services, et cetera. And we're also proposing a reduction in our ADA protection area for folks who are falling outside of our fixed route zones. So these are really, really serious constraints of ours. We have a state funding shortfall. We are largely a state funded agency. And this shortfall has been in place for quite some time, but we were able to receive a good portion of federal stimulus funding in the pandemic that has helped us sort of float for the last 4 or 5 years. But this state funding shortfall is not something new. It is something we've been chatting with our friends
Thank you.
at the state for quite some time. And unfortunately, we don't have a solution yet. So we've gotten to the point where our board has to adopt its fiscal year budget this June, and they are fiscally responsible for adopting a budget that we know that we can carry out. And so they are right now proposing a budget that cuts about 35% of our fixed route service. So it's very serious. We've entered a public comment period, sort of a formal period legally, where we take in comment about these proposed changes. And so we will be hosting 3 days of public hearings, 2, I think, 4-hour sessions on each of those 3 days. On April 29th, May 6th, and June 12th. And we urge you to come, tell us what you think about it. You can also go to our website and fill out a survey. It's pretty short and sweet if you'd like to just do something quick and feel like your voice is heard. The website is rideprt.org/funding-crisis. You can also write us a letter. You can drop us a voicemail. You can come downtown to the service center and talk to customer service in person. So there's many ways that people can get involved. But even if this doesn't impact you as significantly because you are one of the neighborhoods that is lucky enough to be preserving your service coverage, we have many neighborhoods and municipalities that are losing all transit service under this scenario. And so for their sakes and all of our community's sakes, at being a livable community that doesn't have, the worst congestion in the world, and not to mention, some of our air quality and other challenges that would come from putting 39,000 cars back on the road. We urge you to find a way to get involved and help support your regional transit system. So with that, I will turn it back over to Stephanie, who I imagine would prefer to run any Q&A if there is any on either topic.
Yeah, before we jump into Q&A, can you just, the public hearings, are those live or virtual or hybrid, or what's, can you tell us more about that?
Yep, they are in person only. So the first one and the third one are at the convention center and the second one on May 6th is at Soldiers and Sailors Hall in Oakland. So all the details for the times, click the button to sign up for a time to speak, things like that are all at that website there, so that you can determine if you want to come in person or ask someone to speak on your behalf in person. We're not doing them hybrid intentionally. We're trying to use the online survey for people who want to interact with us online. The other thing that allows us to do is turn around the feedback from this public comment period very quickly. We were hoping to not have to get to this point, and unfortunately we did. And so we are trying to pack a lot of public feedback into a short period of time and still allow our board to make an informed decision about their budget by the end of June.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Amy, you know this, I'll just throw this out there just so people are aware. So the pump station, the Pittsburgh Water was here last month, and we talked about landscaping in front of the pump station. And so we now have monthly meetings with them about that project and other work they do in the park. And one of the things we asked them was as they're developing the landscaping plan for in front of the pump station, to think about where and how they could integrate a porta potty, because what tends to happen in the park is that they just kind of find the places that are used the most and find a flat spot and just put a porta potty in. And so we sort of have these eyesores all over the park. I mean, they're needed, but they're not particularly attractive. And this was an opportunity to perhaps be a little more thoughtful about what they're doing. So the person in DPW who's responsible for the porta potties is working with the landscape architect that Pittsburgh Water hired to do the plans for that space. So again, I think you're linked into all those people, but just there could be a park. We asked for a porta potty because there is park access there. There's a trailhead right there. There's going to be new trail access there. So that's why we're trying to be forward thinking, knowing that this is an area that people would like to have access to. So just as a heads up to you and to others.
Yeah, thanks. We'll make sure we're chatting on that with them as well as we get a little bit closer here.
Yeah, and I don't know, the place where you said that with the trash can is like, I don't know if I've been there recently, but I can't really exactly picture like how flat it is, how open it is. We certainly would not like to see any trees cut down to accommodate a porta potty.
Yeah,
so
no.
let's figure out.
No. We won't be doing that. No, I think whatever's going in the next couple of weeks may need to be there for a couple of weeks, but we'll check in with the DPW and PWSA team to, make sure we're all coordinating on that, so that if we can just use whatever they're putting up anyway, if they're putting up something anyway, it is helpful for us to have two options, so that, sometimes our operators only have an 8-minute layover, or they might be running late and need to get started on time for their next trip. And so they may only really have 2 or 3 minutes to use a facility. And so if we can have 2 there, great. And if we can put them somewhere that is agreeable to everybody and less of an eyesore, we're happy to do that. Yeah.
Great. And we appreciate you guys working with the community. I mean, again, for those of you that have been around for a while, Mac Lynch, I don't know if Mac's on the line. I see Mary's name. He's a former board member, soon to be returning board member, and has been a passionate advocate for this this change for many years. So it's really nice to see it come to fruition. These things, all things in government, they're big projects. Like you said, the road had to be sort of widened and route changes. There has to be a lot of lead time to do route changes and whatnot, just because of scheduling and drivers and stuff. So we appreciate it all. You guys continuing to work on it and seeing it all come together. There's a question in the chat, and also I see at least one hand up. Andrea asked, has the state offered justification for dropping the funding to PRT?
So it's more that the state often enacts acts which have a certain time horizon on them that support transit funding, and often highway and bridge funding as well. So rather than having a stable source of revenue that will always be there, there might be a solution that is designed to last 10 years and then have the legislature again look at the funding and determine how to fund it next. And that's sort of the situation that we're in. So our previous funding was through Act 89. And I believe that was 2012, 2013. I'm sure Darcy will correct me if I'm wrong there. And it was designed to last 10 years. We were able to get a little bit more than that because of the pandemic funding, but we've known that it was sunsetting. We've known that it would be ending at some point, and that the state would then need to, again, look at how they are funding transportation and transit in the state, and then determine how they want to use different sources of revenue to pay for it going forward. So it's not like they dropped it. It's more that it was not designed to be a forever solution.
Thank you. Howard?
Thanks. Forgive me. You went through a lot of stuff and it went very quickly. Can you just recap the timeline for that route change?
Absolutely. So these two routes will have their routing begin the new routes on Sunday, June 22nd.
Okay.
And I see there's a question about the stops, so let me just run through those briefly too. So anything south of Bryant will just stay where it already is. We're not impacting anything until we get to Bryant Street and north. And then once we're at Bryant, so let's start with the 71A. The 71A, after passing Bryant, will have a pair of stops at Elgin, and then we'll have a stop at the layover location that we showed there as well. And then the 71B will have its normal stops on Highland Ave, then we'll turn onto Bryant and have a pair of stops at North St. Clair. And then not another set until it turns onto Negley, and then it'll also use that pair of stops at Elgin.
So the person, Janine, was saying there's no crosswalk there. Is that something, is there a plan to add a crosswalk there? I know at Mellon Terrace, which is where the layover is, as part of the pump station work, there will be a crosswalk across Negley at Mellon Terrace. But there's not one, as far as I know, there's not one planned at Elgin and Negley.
We are also not aware that there is one planned at Elgin. So that is correct, but we can add that, to our discussions with Domi and the city as well to see if there's any opportunity to add one there. The reason for there and not at the corner of Bryant is because we want to have stops that are usable by both routes, so that people aren't running back and forth between one stop or another stop if they could hop on either the A or B to go inbound. So from a safety perspective, it's better for us to have one, stop once the two routes join together. So just north of Bryant. But we'll look at that with our partners at Domi and see if there's an opportunity to get one painted out there.
And I don't know. I don't know what all's involved in that. Maybe since they're already doing another one further up the block, they can, I don't know if there's like economies of scale since they're already doing one on Negley. So,
yep.
Nancy?
Yeah, I do have a question. I think in the early proposals, at least what I recalled, and I may have missed along the way, but I always thought that there were bathrooms planned for the pumps somewhere in the pump station. And that was, why the layovers were there. And I may have missed it. This has been going on for so long, and I know you've been involved for so long. Has something happened that changed that bathroom facilities are no longer part of that development?
Yeah.
Are you talking about public, or are you talking about for the drivers?
Yes.
For both?
No, just the drivers, for just the drivers.
Yeah. So two things have happened. One thing, so the initial thing that happened was that this project got removed from our major infrastructure project for the bus rapid transit. So we are doing no build out of anything beyond Oakland. So every single station that was proposed along Fifth Avenue and Highland Avenue, coming all the way up into Highland Park, as well as the stations that were proposed on Bryant Street, the stations that were proposed on Negley, and the station that's proposed on Mellon Terrace, are not funded. So, and that includes all of the off-street layover and the off-street bathroom as well. Those are unfunded and not fully designed. So we began design on them. We did go after two separate grants one grant for the whole corridor and then a separate grant just for Mellon Terrace and the sort of pump house area as well. We do have a small amount of funding that can be used for sidewalk and pedestrian improvements in the Mellon Terrace area, but it is not able to be used for bus operator facilities or bus facilities at all. So it depends on the source of funding that we go after, sometimes what we're able to spend dollars on. And so right now we have no funding to pay for any of that work. And so we were not planning actually to make these routing changes until we were able to fund the rest of the project. What has pushed us to make these routing changes now is the restroom issue. We had told the community and you all that the thing that was holding us up from making the routing changes was that we still had a good bathroom at the apartment building. We still had a heated and climate controlled restroom facility, so our operators could use that and not be out in the cold, having to go to the bathroom between their trips or in a 100-degree porta potty. But because that opportunity, we lost that opportunity, and so we're no longer able to use that permanent restroom facility. We thought, well, if we're already using a porta potty either way, we may as well at least use the porta potty where the community has already told us they want the routing to move to. So yes, we would still like to build out a restroom facility on the pump house property that is a permanent small structure that would be maintained and used exclusively for PRT. That means we can keep our problems to ourselves inside four walls and deal with it ourselves and not be at the whim of another entity having challenges with us using their restroom facility. So that is still our desire. We had originally talked with PWSA about having shared restroom facilities, and they have security challenges with enabling us to do that. So we would like to have PRT only small building on the PWSA pump house site at some point in the future. We just don't have funding for it.
There's another question in the chat. For transit to the park entry garden, what would be the recommended bus stop for riders?
All right, you might need to tell me more about that.
So I believe, Janine, you're talking about just the regular entry gardens, like the top of the top of Highland Ave.
I would imagine that would have been my thought too. So yeah, so it will be a farther walk for transit riders to get to Highland Park proper with this routing. And we did have those conversations here with the community when we were, kind of going over the trade-offs of this routing proposal. So this routing proposal does take transit a bit further away. It's still not, a particularly large neighborhood. So, I haven't measured it, but my guess is we're still under a 10-minute walk from either the pair of stops at Bryant Street or even sort of Bryant at Highland, that corner. There'll be a bus stop, near that corner that already exists today. So you could just walk straight up Highland Avenue to the steps there, or you could get off, all the way at the end at the layover stop and walk over from Mellon Terrace.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Seeing and hearing none. Thank you so much, Amy and Darcy.
I had one more question. I had trouble getting off of mute.
Oh, sure.
But for those who are traveling on the 71A to the entry garden and they get off at the layover stop, since traffic coming up One Wild Place when you get to that corner doesn't have a stop sign, I think it will be challenging for pedestrians, or they would have to take a more extended route to get to the entry garden, since the sidewalk leading from the layover towards the park is competing with traffic that doesn't have a stop sign.
Yeah, and I believe there's not a crosswalk from Mellon Terrace straight across Mellon Street. Is that right? Anyone else can picture that?
Mm-hmm.
I believe we designed that in our BRT project, though. So it's been a couple years since I've looked at those designs, but I believe when we were working with the community, had that specific discussion. And I believe we were planning to add a crosswalk. So if you took Mellon Terrace and drew a line straight across the street to that apartment building, we're planning to put a crosswalk there to provide that safe pathway both to the apartment building and to the park from the BRT station. So we still want to build the BRT stations. That is still our intent. And when I say BRT station, for those of you who have not, maybe been in downtown or seen the renderings of the stations, they're just really nice bus shelters. They're most of the ones that would be in Highland Park would still be about the length of a typical bus shelter. They're just a little spiffier looking, and they'll have fare vending machines and a little bench and things like that. So a nice fresh BRT shelter. We're still hoping to be able to get funding to build those for the neighborhood as well.
Other questions? All right. Thank you guys so much.
Yep. Thank you all. Have a great night.
you.
Okay. I did have one other quick speaker, Dr. Gentili. A lot of you know she does the walks in the park with the doctor, sort of a free opportunity to chat and exercise. And she was going to jump on and just talk a little bit about her program for the season. Oh, and where'd you go? You disappeared. There you are.
Are we good? Thanks so
We're
much
good.
for the opportunity, Stephanie. Hey, everybody. I don't know, maybe we've met before. I'm Dr. Natalie Gentili. I had a practice in Highland Park, actually on Bryant Street, as a primary care doc since 2019. Now I'm down the road on South Highland Avenue. So we are in our 6th year, actually, of leading Walk with a Doc walks. In Highland Park, we meet at the water fountain, and then we walk around the reservoir for about 45 minutes. For those of you who haven't joined us on these are free. This is an opportunity to talk really quickly about a health topic and then join together as a community and take a walk. I would love to see more community members out this year. We actually have 4 opportunities every month now to do this together. The second and 4th Thursdays of the month at 8 a.m. and then the 2nd and 4th Sundays of the month at 8:30. So I'll drop in the chat the Instagram handle and Facebook handle where you can follow us. I've been emailing on the listserv, and I'll send the website with those dates as well. But we'd love to see more community members there, and I really appreciate your time and welcome any questions. I'll put our email in there as well. Thanks again, Stephanie, for letting me pop on.
Yeah, thank you. Always nice to see you. All right. That's the end of sort of our official agenda. I promised some park updates. If folks are interested in that, I can stay on and talk a little bit. There's nothing like super formal, but there's just always a lot of activity in the park. So, and it feels like there's more and more lately. So, if you were here last month, you know that on the pump station, we had a lot of activity, a lot of work with Pittsburgh Water and Duquesne Light about rerouting the power lines and getting better landscaping plans. And we have been very fortunate in that we were able to get them to commit to monthly meetings. So now we're having monthly meetings with Pittsburgh Water, Duquesne Light, a couple different folks at Department of Public Works, including Forestry, Deb Gross's office, and the Parks Conservancy, just to make sure that we keep a handle on sort of activities around the pump station, but also other activities that Pittsburgh Water is doing in the park. We're kind of, in some ways, a unique city park in that we house quite a significant amount of water infrastructure. And so in the past, sometimes communication between us and between these different entities has not always happen on a regular basis. And so we've sort of tried to institute this new meeting to help to change that. So that's a very positive development. Also summit related, we've been doing a lot of work in the past several months advocating for cleanup in Hess Run and sort of bring that issue back to the spotlight with the city. That's the area, if you're not familiar with it, it's now the zoo's parking lot, and then it continues backwards into the valley. It used to be a much deeper valley going back 100 years, but over time it's been filled in by the city. And there's the desire to regreen a lot of that space, add some more trails to provide more access for park users, communities on the east end to access Highland Park, and then eventually to access down to the waterfront and all the growing network of trails on the waterfront. So we've been working hard with the city and got the city to commit to running a working group, and that's going to hopefully start hopefully by the end of the month. That was the goal. That includes Highland Park Community Council. Again, a lot of the same players, Deb Gross's office, a lot of folks from Public Works, Parks and Conservancy, Pittsburgh Water, some other groups like the East Liberty Highland Park Bike Pedestrian. Well, they're called something different now. East Liberty Highland Park Safe Streets Committee, Upstream PGH, which used to be 9 Mile Run Watershed, and some other folks. So it's really focused on being a working group. This is sort of going beyond sort of planning and going beyond sort of thinking about it conceptually, but trying to get a system in place to actually begin working towards making some progress down there. They recently, like literally today, installed a gate. They've had some issues with illegal dumping, so that's going to hopefully put an end to that. We're trying to get them to more quickly reduce their footprint down there and begin a process of remediation, cleanup, and trail building. So it's still, it's going to be a process, but we're excited that we now have this sort of working group that's going to be established and moving forward. So that's super exciting. On the other side of the neighborhood, the Nagley Run Watershed, that organization has continued to move forward on issues related to stormwater and management and trails on that side to connect the communities over there, Lincoln, Leamington, Belmar, Larimer, to the park. They actually are adjacent to the park, but they don't really have good access. And so there's been a multi-year effort to try to do some connections over there, some trail connections, and create a greenway. So those folks were recently meeting with city planning on that effort. So that's super exciting. We're sort of engaged a little bit on that, just sort of talking to those folks, keeping up to date on that. If you, another effort, there's so many things happening in the park. If you come across the Highland Park Bridge, you can look up, you might see there's a big swath of trees that was removed as part of Pittsburgh Water's Rising Main project. The city just put out to bid a contract to plant 2,000 trees down there over the course of 5 years. So that'll be a lot of trees being planted down in that part of the park. It's not an area that a lot of people access, but it's still good to have more tree cover in our park. What else is happening? We're still having conversations about the DEP order. The State Department of Environmental Protection has declared that the reservoirs are technically dams and need to be regulated as such. And so they'd like all the trees to come down from both reservoirs. So there's been a lot of conversation about this. The city is really pushing back on it. So it'll be a process. Right now, if you've been out there, you might have seen they've started to do some boring samples. They're trying to sort of get a better understanding of actually what the earthen part of the reservoir looks like, the root network, and that sort of thing, so to have a better understanding of what they're actually working with. So again, there's there'll be a process. Even if the trees do end up coming down, there will be definitely some engagement about what goes up in their place. A long-term, the upper reservoir and the microfiltration plant are actually coming offline. This is, again, probably about 10 years out, but already we've started talking about what will happen with those facilities. So that will be, again, a future public engagement opportunity to sort of rethink those two spaces as well. And if you're a Pogo fan, the bike rentals, there is supposed to be a bike rental station coming to the park. We met with those folks last fall. The bike station is going to go into where Connecting Drive meets Reservoir Drive. So if you are in your car and you went into the main entrance of Highland Park, you turn right onto Reservoir Drive, you sort of go straight, you start going around the bend, you pass the road where Connecting Drive comes up, and then the bike station would be right there. And that was chosen a couple of different reasons. It's close to the entry, but we didn't want something that would sort of you know, the entry is sort of a really special place with the historic statues and whatnot. So we didn't really want it right sort of in that view line. And the fact that there's a parking lot over there would allow people to like drive there and rent the bikes and park there easily. So, and it's also a nice flat and area and, you know, meets their needs in that respect. So that should be coming later this year as well. So, because there are just so many park activities that we've been sort of keeping tabs on and trying to keep you all sort of come to our attention that there really needs to be sort of like the so much work happening in the park that sort of merits an organization of its own. And so we have a group of folks working together that are going to be over the next several months sort of developing sort of a new organization that will be sort of just focusing on Highland Park, the park issues. So that is a sort of an exciting new development, and we'll keep you posted on that as well. And I think that's about it. So does anyone have any questions about any of those little bits and pieces, or any other questions about stuff happening in the park? All right. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Hi, Stephanie.
Yeah.
This is Kate. I'm sorry, just jumping in.
Hi,
I was
Kate.
curious if if folks from the zoo and or Morningside are engaged in the Hess Run conversations.
That's a great question. So they've both been invited.
Okay.
So the zoo, you know, Jen Torpy, the zoo community liaison, was here in February at our community meeting and presented their new plan, their new master plan, which is essentially like rebuilding the zoo from the ground up. And at that meeting, she kind of acknowledged that, yeah, like it doesn't make sense to have a beautiful new zoo with this terrible parking lot. You know, they keep getting flummoxed because they don't know how to pay for it. And we keep telling them, you know, we'll figure it out. Like it's down the road, like at least come to the table. So I'm optimistic that, and she says that Dr. Goodman is also sort of, you know, more willing to have these conversations. So I'm optimistic that they'll participate. We'll see. Again, our meetings haven't started yet, but they've definitely been invited. And then we've reached out to the Morningside Area Community Council. Haven't heard back from them yet, but we do. But the one of the sort of community organizers for upstream Pittsburgh, who is organizing the Nagley Run meeting, actually lives in Morningside. So he at least is going to be part of those meetings. So at least have a voice from Morningside, even if it's not like officially from MAC. And if you all know folks at MAC, we would love to chat with them and about this. We just haven't really been able to connect with them.
Thank you.
Jack, do you have a question? Was that just like a?
No, I was saying thank you.
All right. Anything else? All right. Well, thanks so much for coming. Thanks for supporting the HPCC. And we'll see you all at some of these upcoming events. Have a good night.